Okay, so we're going to go over service on the Bobcat stand-up, but most of the machines are similar. So for the service on this machine, some of the things to look for: check your tire pressure before operating, check the lug nuts. You're supposed to do it with an actual torque wrench. I can look up the actual spec, but also at minimum, when you're doing the service, check them finger tight, make sure they're not loosening and falling off the machine. Right here, I'm going to have you come over and zoom in on this, Ella. The top of the machine has fins right here. What we want to do is take a 10 millimeter, take the bolts, take this off, and what you'll see right here, if you zoom in a little closer, see how we have this stuff stuck right here? This can cause the machine to overheat. So what we're going to do is take a wire brush, get rid of that. This will keep the machine in good operating condition and keep it from overheating, which causes it to burn oil. So once we're all set with that, put the screws back in. I believe they're 10 millimeter on the top, but the actual size I believe is like a M6 or a M8 bolt. If you needed to get more that you lost, you could just head to your local hardware store. They're a metric bolt, and replace them, but you know, they're pretty easy to keep track of here. Okay, now that we're done with that, we inspect the air cleaner. If you have a spare air filter, now's the time to replace it. You also check this bellows, make sure there's no spider nests or anything in there. Sometimes squirrels will hide, or mice will hide their pieces. This filter was just replaced last season. At the end of the season, it's still pretty clean, so we're not going to need to replace it. But if you do, this comes out and you replace both the inner and the outer. These ones I've been ordering in bulk for Frank on Amazon. And again, I can get the part number for that, and we can just order them in bulk. When you get this back on, these little hooks hook on the top and bottom, and you want this towards the bottom here. So now we're going to do the actual oil change. I've already warmed the machine up. What I like to do is check the oil level on the machine before starting to service it to make sure that the machine's not consuming a lot of oil. You see this is about halfway on the fill, but the machine is tilted a little bit. So it's in the safe zone, but it's at a place that we should definitely keep an eye on it. So what we're going to do is, there's this plastic nut right here. I'm going to take this off. Then this cover here comes off, comes out of our way. This gives us the ability to clean out grass and other debris, to inspect the belt, make sure that's good, make sure all the bolts look good in here, clean up anything that's sitting in here. And on some of the machines, there's a grease fitting here. These machines, this Bobcat is non-greasable, so there's no fittings on the spindles here. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop this down, have our drain pan ready, and drain the oil. So we're going to take this here, move it down here, move it down here, and then we're going to loosen this. Don't even need a tool. And there you go. Now I have already warmed this machine up so the oil comes out faster. If you do it when the oil is cold, it's going to take longer to drain out, and all the metal particles and stuff that's stuck in the oil will not have been mixed up, so it'll be sitting at the bottom of the motor, so it may not always come out in the oil change. So it's better to start the motor first, warm it up. You can sometimes take the cap off and loosen it in order to have the oil drain a little faster, but this does take a little bit. So in the meantime, you can so this is the oil filter, universal oil filter wrench. There are several different ones that are similar. This is a Craftsman one that I like the most. you can use a 3/8 drive ratchet on it, or you can use a 3/4 inch box end or open end wrench on it to turn that. It'll work in both directions, so whether you're tightening or loosening. So if you're going to loosen, you just put it on right here, you get it snug, and then you just lift up with your wrench and you just turn, and away you go. So what we're going to do is we're going to move pretty quickly. We're going to spin this off. Again, this is going to drip out. I'll get another rag just so that we have it. You can pause. This machine, I have a filter for it right here. Takes a 49065-0724 filter. There are some compatible ones that are similar that you can often use. I've already pre-ordered a bunch for Frank, so he should have those in stock. What we're going to do is take the oil filter, take a little bit of the used oil, run that around on the ring of the seal here. That's going to help that seal come off next time when you need it, and be easier to remove. So this filter may come off by hand and it may not. So let's see if we can do it by hand. Yep. So we can loosen it by hand. If we couldn't, if it was on too tight, we would have needed a special tool. This tool will need to be purchased. I will bring it over here. You can stop the recording. Okay, so planning ahead for the leak here. We got that all ready to go. We spin this off. You can see the oil comes out, makes a mess. And then what we do, clean this up a little bit. And you don't need to worry about being perfect, but prevent as much leaks from getting on the belt as possible is good. Take your new filter, spin it on, and then you're supposed to go to where you can feel it snug, where it starts hitting the bottom, and then you go about a quarter turn past that. That should be pretty snug for most applications. So this worked out pretty well. We didn't get too much of a mess in here. Dry off that hose. Okay, and last but not least, got to put that low oil reminder back on. This is supposed to stop the motor if there's too much or too little oil. I haven't seen those work very good with Kawasaki's. They will run completely out of oil before those will trigger, which you've already done a lot of engine damage by then. I'm going to go grab a filter, and then a funnel, and we're going to add fluid. So while the oil is draining, you take your grease gun, and we're going to grease all the different Zerk fittings on the machine. So you wipe them off first with either a rag or at least with your finger, and then hook the grease gun on, and you pump it until you see a little bit of grease come out. Once you see that grease come out, you know you're good. You can also,
at this point, if you want to keep things clean, you can wipe it off so you don't have a mess of grease everywhere, using some rags or paper towels or whatever you're going to be using. And we move to all the other fittings. So there'll be one more fitting over here. And again, wipe it off first so you don't push dirt and grease into it. There you go. That one took the grease fine. We're going to do this one here. Now this one usually takes a lot of grease, and I don't usually go all the way till it starts spurting out down here. But basically you saw about a couple seconds worth of pumping. Now this machine doesn't have Zerk fittings on the front axles, but some of the machines do. So depending on whether or not there's a fitting, if there is one, obviously grease it. I already greased this one earlier, so both of these should be greased. And there you go, the grease comes out there. Same thing here. Now this one appears to have been damaged, but we do have a fitting here. See if it takes. Yeah, there is. The grease has come out. Looks like we're missing a cap, so we'll have to order a dust cap for that to put back on top. And those caps, you look on the other side with the video, just that gets capped.
okay. So you want to make sure your funnel is clean. If you're using a dirty funnel, you're just going to add dirt right back into the motor, and it defeats the whole purpose of changing your oil if you're just going to be dumping dirt in it. So it's really important to make sure the inside and outside is cleaned out completely. I advise storing your funnel, if you have a smaller one, inside of like a Ziploc bag or a garbage bag or something that'll allow you to keep the dirt and dust off of it. So what we've been using on these machines usually is a full synthetic. Mobile One is one of the big brands. This one happened to be on sale, so we got this, but it's full synthetic is the big deal. And then the weight that I generally use is like this 5W40 or a 1540, a thicker oil, because these machines really run real hot in the summer. This diesel grade stuff has a lot of additives and it seems to hold up really well. They do make an official 10W30 that you can put in these that is a lot more money, and I haven't seen it perform any better. So this machine takes, I believe, about 1 3/4 quarts. You can see we only got 1 quart in here, so we're going to add all of this and then we're going to finish adding the remainder in a minute. So you pull the funnel a little bit out so that there's some air space, and that'll allow this to fill as quickly as possible. Change in the winter or in cold weather, store the oil jug inside before you go to change the oil, and then the oil is going to come out of the jug a lot faster. If you use an oil jug that's been sitting outside at 20 or 30 degrees, this oil is going to come out like molasses. It's going to take you a lot longer to do your service. So this has only been 1 quart. I can guarantee this is not going to be enough, but we're going to check it anyway just to show the process. What I usually do is not even thread it on. So press in and check. Looks like we're right at the bottom of the dipstick. When in doubt, when you're not sure the reading, you put it in, you put it back out again. There's nothing really on the dipstick, maybe just at the very bottom. So we're going to do another, grab some more oil. Yep, that's right at the bottom. You can stop for now. Yeah. Okay. So what you want in this case, this is fresh oil, even though it's actually dark color, and we're a little bit over full. That's not good. However, we haven't started the motor yet, but you want it to be at least at full before you start it. Because we put a new filter on it, that filter is now empty, but the filters have an anti-drain back valve in them. See the reddish material here that holds the oil in the filter once the filter's been filled. So we're going to actually end up starting it. It's going to pump oil into that filter, and then we're going to turn it back off again and check your oil one final time. So we're going to start it up. It's going to possibly blow a little smoke out here there, Ella, so just watch out when it starts. Seems to be quieter after it's been changed. After the oil's been changed, that's a good thing. So take the oil dipstick right off, check, and you'll see the level is lower now. The level was up above full, now the level's just below full. So that's right where it wants to be. So oil has now been changed, air filter, oil filter, we're all good to go. Last step that I usually do on this machine as well is document the oil change so that you have a reference point. So you come over here and we do a couple things. Watch for the, don't slip in the oil. Okay, if we look on here on this little screen, can you see that? Can I jump up here? Yep. See how it says change oil now? What we're going to do is hold this button down while it's on that blinking, and that's going to reset it. And once you get to all zeros, now it says change oil in 100 hours. So you're good. Now what it'll do is you go to the next screen and it's saying service air filter now. We checked the air filter, so we know that's good. We're going to reset that reminder. So we're going to press and hold that one until we get all zeros. Okay, now that that's been reset, service, now it wants to do change hydraulic oil in 292 hours. So when the hydraulic oil is needed, that'll be a different service and that'll have to be done. That isn't needed right now, so we're good. So we're in a good place. So now what we're going to do, step off, so we're going to take this machine cover right here, just lift up and remove it, and we're going to write down the hours and the service. So we got 1495. So oil and filter, 1495, and it was, today is 4/22. So we just do the month and the year, and you can see We're a little bit early on this oil change, but it was already getting low on fluid, or low on oil, so it's a good time to get it done, and now it's going to be ready to go for the season. While we're in here, we check the battery cables, make sure those are tight. This machine had a new battery put in it last season, so we're in a good place. While we're in here, we check things out, make sure that there's nothing that's suspicious. This hydraulic fluid you can see is overflowing and leaking, so keep an eye on that one. And then last but not least, I noticed something earlier when looking over the machine. Come over here. These machines are famous for losing these bolts. If you look right in here, this is the exhaust bracket. We're going to grab another bolt for this and install that and put in some Loctite. We've been doing that every single service that those fall out. We put in new ones with Loctite, and they seem to keep falling out, but we're going to keep trying to keep those in, because once that bracket breaks or all the holes come out, then all the weight goes on this one exhaust pipe right here, and it'll break that exhaust pipe right off the machine. So we try hard to keep this bracket functional. Okay. So you can use a 13 millimeter or a 1/2 inch. Those sizes are actually very close to each other. And you want it relatively tight, but this is going into aluminum, so you got to be careful you don't over tighten it. So it's kind of go by feel, but you want this as tight as possible without stripping it out. Hopefully the thread locker holds it in. So now we've replaced the bolts. We always look things over while we're here. Check the hose condition, make sure nothing's cracked or leaking, check for drips or leaks, and just overall inspect everything, give it a good shake, make sure nothing's loose. And that's how to service the machine. While you're waiting for the oil, turn these two knobs quarter turn and inspect the air filter. This one looks like it's getting to be about due. We'll order another one. I believe last season, this is the machine down in here on both sides was full of a mouse nest. So the machine had very few hours on it and was already chock full of a mouse nest. So that's been removed. We're in good shape, but keep your eyes peeled. If that does happen, what you need to do is take off all these bolts all the way around, right here, all the way around, and then this whole cover comes off. You take that whole shroud off, and then you can clean out the mouse nest. Again, hopefully that doesn't happen. Now, as mentioned, this filter is a bit of a bear to get to. You'll see there's not a whole lot of clearance, and it actually is kind of tight to remove. This oil filter wrench, again, will save you. You can see here, we're removing it, getting it going. Once we get it going, then we can spin it off by hand, and it's going to hopefully drop most of the oil out that hole. Just make sure your drain pan is in the right place underneath, and away you go. Now this machine takes a slightly different filter. If you look here, I believe it's this one. I will confirm later in the video, but it's this part number. You'll see it actually says it's for a Kohler. This is a Kawasaki motor, but the filter is the correct filter there. It does not run the Kawasaki filters from my recollection. We'll find out when I take this off here. Now for the bad boy mower, oil change process is a little different. You have this piece right here that you need to hold with one adjustable and loosen with the other one. So you'll need two adjustable wrenches, one to hold this upper area, and then you have this piece right here. So once you get it close, you get your drain pan where it needs to be. Take that out. Now that's coming out pretty clean, not horrible. The machine probably doesn't have a ton of hours on the last service there.